Environmental groups say the whale shark is being hunted indiscriminately in India, the Philippines, Taiwan, and other parts of Asia for its fins and meat. It's the world's largest fish and can weigh up to 15 tons and be as long as 65 feet. There are no firm estimates of the total whale shark population, but environmentalists say more than 100 million sharks and shark-like fish are hunted every year. Nicknamed the gentle giant, the whale shark feeds by filtering plankton and other small organisms through its gills. Shark fins are considered a great delicacy in many Asian countries, particularly Hong Kong, Singapore and Taiwan, where they are served in top-class restaurants as shark fin soup. Environmentalists at Wild Aid say it's going to take time to change this age-old tradition. Whale sharks inhabit warm tropical waters all over the world, excluding the Mediterranean Sea, but they are slow to mature and reproduce. Most do not reach maturity until 30 years of age and may live as long as 60 to 100 years, making them extremely vulnerable to human exploitation. The whale shark is currently classified by the IUCN Red List of Threatened Animals as vulnerable, but there are no further international protections for shark species. Wild Aid's Victor Wu says studies have estimated that whale shark tourism generates much more income for countries than the hunting and sale of its meat and fins. He believes whale shark ecotourism would be one of the key factors behind its survival from money-hungry whale hunters. Environmental organisations worldwide have also called for an international ban on shark finning and a global moratorium on trade in any products from the great white, basking and whale sharks. When it's feeding time at Bristol Zoo, gorilla lady Romina is right there to pick up her share. Just like her fellow gorilla mates, Romina gets her daily supply of vegetables from head keeper Melanie Gage. Nothing unusual to the zoo's visitors, but for those who know Romina, they remember a time when things weren't always this way for this 22-year-old primate. Romina was born with congenital cataracts, cloudy lenses in both eyes, which left her almost blind, with only minimal peripheral vision. She was unable to see the food that was thrown and couldn't see her way around the compound. Her inability to see isolated Romina from her fellow gorilla companions, and she was altogether withdrawn and quiet. That's when staff at Bristol Zoo decided on a pioneering operation to save Romina's sight. And she became the first adult gorilla in Europe to have one of her cataracts removed and replaced with a silicone lens. At the time, the operation hadn't been done before, and although the risks involved were that Romina could remain totally blind, staff at Bristol Zoo decided to go ahead with the operation. The operation consisted of cutting into Romina's eyes to remove the cataracts and place a lens into her eyes so that she could see properly. The second operation on her second eye was completed successfully, and Romina can now see clearly for the first time in her life. Having had her sight restored has done a lot for Rhimina's confidence, according to her keeper. As Rhimina is now enjoying her new sight, vets at Bristol Zoo are hoping she will be able to breed successfully with her 18-year-old potential mate, Bongo. But that's a prospect Rhimina is not interested in just yet. These Husum red-coloured pigs, named after the northern German city of Husum, are almost extinct. Once they were the preferred domestic pigs of a Danish minority living in Germany's northernmost state of Schleswig-Holstein, bordering Denmark. Also because the animals display Denmark's national colours of red and white on their skin. But since their meat wasn't terribly popular, they weren't bred for consumption, and hence almost became extinct. Berlin Zoo has pledged to keep animal species alive and has been the home to 2 Husum red-coloured pigs for many years. Zwerkel and Solvi became the proud parents of 6 piglets, 4 of whom will be passed on to breeders, since the zoo has only limited space capacity, even for cute little piglets. Zookeeper Griesbach says, "As to the taste, I can't say," adding with a smile that maybe they taste better than our overbred pigs. These 8 tigers captured from the wild after several attacks on humans are posing a major headache to the Malacca Zoo, 200 kilometers south of Kuala Lumpur, as it tries to find new homes for the cats. Unfamiliar with their new surroundings, these once proud and majestic animals howl, roar and charge at every human that approaches their tiny cages. The Malacca Zoo is unable to provide better facilities for its new guests due to a lack of space. There are already 10 tigers occupying open enclosures at the zoo, and putting any more in may cause them to fight, according to zoo officials. The zoo's food bill also surged, with more fresh meat required daily to feed the 8 additional tigers. Authorities began a campaign to hunt down tigers from the wild after a series of attacks on domestic animals and human beings. The director of the Malacca Zoo said he was under great pressure to give the new tigers away quickly. In Malaysia, wild tigers are finding it harder and harder to survive as more and more of the jungle habitat where they thrive is opened up for development and agriculture. Wild tigers are solitary animals, and they tend to fight when clumped together. These caged animals eye their human captors angrily, while grown-ups and children with popcorn in hand look in awe at the furious beasts inside these reinforced steel cells. But these tigers will probably never taste freedom again, as long as that includes the freedom to attack and kill humans. His name is Shah Rukh Khan, and he can wiggle his hips better than any Bollywood star and strum a guitar almost like a rock star. Khan is a shaggy-haired black bear named after India's biggest movie star who dances at sidewalk shows on the way to the historic town of Fatehpur. His keeper keeps a tight grip on him with a coarse rope pierced through his nose. Singh says gypsies hit the animals to keep them disciplined, just like a schoolteacher sometimes uses the stick on students who misbehave. Some years ago, dancing bears or sloth bears were as common on Indian streets as snake charmers with king cobras. At pavements and outside movie theatres across the country, sloth bears entertained crowds by playing imaginary guitars, smoking cigarettes, dancing in the hot sun on their hind legs to the pounding of drums, all for a few rupees a day. Activists say sloth bears are on the verge of extinction in India because of increased poaching by an ancient tribe of gypsies known as Kalandars who use the animals for their shows. Animal rights activists say about 100 bears are poached from the forest every year, and the bear population has fallen from some 10,000 to around 4,000. In an effort to save dancing bears from the desperately poor Kalandar tribe, Wildlife SOS has set up a bear sanctuary in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh, where over 60 rescued bears live within a protected environment. The Kalandars later wrench out the teeth of the bears without any anaesthetic. They pierce an iron needle with coarse rope through their muzzle so they can be controlled. Some go blind as the rope pulls over their eyes. Activists say there are some 600 Kalandar families with about 1,000 bears who train their animals over a fire in a hot pan and often castrate them with a blade or a hot knife. However, as a result of these extreme measures, many bears die of infection and trauma before their normal lifespan of about 25 years, and this prompts the Kalandars to poach from the forest. Animals can't be let loose in the forest as they can't manage in the wild because of so many traumatizing years with the Kalandars that leave them incapable of handling jungle life. Some Kalandars say they are willing to give up their bears if the government gives them compensation. Wildlife SOS has convinced many Kalandars to surrender their bears for money, which they have used to set up cold drink stalls and other small businesses. But most Kalandars say they will never give up the profession of their forefathers. This video was secretly videotaped by members of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals in a remote area in northern Thailand. The disturbing video shows handlers severely beating a frightened young elephant which refuses to enter a cage. This, Peter says, is a ritual carried out daily for up to a week and is part of a young Thai elephant's training by villagers for a working life entertaining tourists in Thailand. But Peter's findings are being challenged by conservationists and the Thai government, which says the group is promoting a one-sided campaign about the treatment of animals, Thailand's national symbol. Although the government admits the practice does take place, it says there is an ongoing campaign to re-educate the village handlers on the use of more humane methods of training elephants. Conservationists and the government say there are few alternatives to domestication or living in captivity for the country's estimated 4,000 elephants. In a word, space is the issue. The elephant's natural habitat is disappearing fast, eaten away by rapid urbanization, greater demands for resources, and a growing human population. Critics say the campaign video misrepresents the overall humane treatment of most domesticated elephants and could do more damage than good in the long run. Those running the Elephant Centre in Thailand say this campaign is a step backward and will eventually take its toll on the elephants, the same ones that Peter is fighting for. The government is drafting legislation to protect elephants, which are the country's national symbol and a lucrative tourist drawcard. Groups like Peter remain unconvinced, advocating sanctuaries similar to those in Africa, where elephants can roam freely and tourists pay to enter the park. Yet with forests dwindling, conservationists say that approach is no longer viable. A single elephant in the wild needs about 8,000 acres to survive, and there is little choice but to keep more than half the country's stock in captivity. The natural habitat that 4,000 elephants need to survive in the wild does not exist in Thailand anymore, and in a competition for space with humans, elephants will always lose. This Sumatran rhino is the first to be born in captivity in over 112 years. Emmy, a Sumatran rhino, delivered her calf in the privacy of her stall at the Cincinnati Zoo in Cincinnati, Ohio. The calf was able to stand about 5 minutes later. Zoo scientists and workers were thrilled with the birth, saying the pregnancy and delivery is the culmination of years of research. Dr. Terry Roth is the director of the Zoo's Center for Conservation and Research of Endangered Wildlife. She used ultrasound technology and hormone analysis to discover that these types of rhinos are induced ovulators, meaning eggs are released from the ovary only after mating with the male. Emmy suffered 5 miscarried pregnancies before carrying 1 through the 15 to 17-month term. The Sumatran rhino is the most endangered species of one of the most endangered mammalian species in the world. There are thought to be just 300 Sumatran rhinos in the wild and just 16 in captivity. Endangered species conservationists hope that zoos throughout the world will be better able now to boost the population through breeding in captivity. The idea, of course, is to reintroduce the rhinos back into the forest in their former ranges. Thomas Foos, Program Director of the International Rhino Foundation, says hopes are very high, and in the not-too-distant future, using the methods that have been developed at the Cincinnati Zoo, they will regularly produce this species under managed conditions. Both the parents, Emmy and Ipu, were on loan to the US from the Indonesian government, which has been given the honour of naming this newborn rhino. Hundreds of penguins were released into the ocean in Argentina by biologists with the Mar del Plata Aquarium, who had rescued these birds from an oil spill. The rescuers looked on as 200 birds, all recovered during the same week, were given their freedom. The birds had been travelling south during July-August when they were caught in an oil spill. Mar del Plata aquarium biologist Karen Grillo said this was a warning to everyone. We need to see, she said, what happens to the many animals that end up hurt by oil spills, by man's irresponsibility. On average, this aquarium rescues about 300 penguins annually, eventually returning them to their natural environment. The white sand of Kenya's Watamu Beach provides a welcoming hideaway for tourists. But the quiet waters and warm sands also fulfill another valuable function. They form a nesting ground for endangered turtles. Richard Zanre is the coordinator for Watamu Turtle Watch and is determined to save this turtle species remaining in this part of the world. At around 6 in the evening, with a group of locals and interested tourists, he checks his nest. Each nest is numbered, and a few centimeters beneath the sand awaits his treasure. Green sea turtle hatchlings. The hatchlings struggle to dig themselves out of the sand. These particular hatchlings hatched a few hours ago, and the journey to the surface has been an arduous one. For the tourists, it's an uncommon sight. Luckily for these hatchlings, they'll have a helping hand to complete their next and extremely hazardous journey, making it to the sea. Zanre collects the turtles in his ever-present red bucket and finally releases them under the cover of darkness. The turtles hasten to the relative safety of the sea. But the chances that these green sea turtles will reach sexual maturity is minimal. Turtles are a prized catch. The locals have various uses for them, and they have hunted them for hundreds of years. The evidence these practices are ongoing are often washed up on the beach. This green sea turtle was killed at sea about 3 days ago. It is clear that it had been spear gunned and slaughtered in a dhow, and the meat carved off the turtle. The find causes much distress to people like Zanre who work for the turtle's survival. Not only is it a matter of killing an endangered species, but the turtles are an important link in the ecosystem. The problem of overfishing has been rife in these waters. Fishermen kill hundreds of these turtles every year by design or just neglect by interfering with their habitat. Zanre believes education is the key to the continued existence of the turtles. Education is ongoing, particularly in schools. A conservation program has started 8 turtle clubs in various primary schools in the Watamu Sea. The children are taught the importance of conserving all sorts of endangered turtles. The children enjoy the lessons. It is a break from routine, and the initiative is bearing fruit. Zanre said the progress had been gradual but exciting. His work also has unexpected pleasures, like the discovery of one of the rarest and most endangered sea turtles, the hawksbill turtle, nesting on the beach. It's a sight Zanre would love to see more of, and it's one he desperately hopes that future generations will also be able to see for themselves.